Good afternoon. I call this meeting of the Board of Health to order. My name is Thomas Corey, Donna Strong, and Tess Curran, the agent for the board. Dr. Souza has notified us that he won't be able to attend today. The open meeting law. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived by those present, and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. We have the approval of the minutes from the meeting of October 9th. Are there any additions, deletions, corrections to be made to the minutes of the meeting as printed?
No.
Hearing none, do we have a motion to accept?
I make a motion to accept the minutes from the October 9th, 2019
Okay, I'll do the seconding. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. We have a request for tattoo permit. Come on down. No protection of the table.
No, I know. So it should be though.
Could you state your name and addresses for the record, please?
Sure.
Sophia Davila. I live in New Bedford, 15 New Plainville Road.
Okay.
Yep, Aaron Gilmet, owner of Up in Flames Tattoo, 785 Madison Street, Fall River.
And a regular here at the Board of Health.
Yes, I know. Seems like it, yeah.
Lisa, what is your recommendations?
My recommendations are that she can get her tattoo license. She has all her credentials in front of you.
I went through the paperwork over
Okay.
the weekend. Everything looked good to me.
Yeah, you're actually working in Chelsea right now also?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so that's the
You
current
commute all the
license.
way to Chelsea every day? No wonder you want to
Train-
work in Fall
Yeah,
River.
weaning off it, yeah, exactly, yeah. Yes,
Okay.
that's tough.
So
So
everything.
everything is in order, everything's, she's all set to go.
Okay, Aaron's a regular before us, and we've never had any complaints or
No,
problems or anything?
no,
He's,
This is where I would go if I
Yeah.
was to get that.
Thank you.
Okay, very good.
I make a motion to accept, to grant Sophia Davila a tattoo practitioner license for the city of Fall River.
Okay, I'll second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Off to work you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank
Now
you.
it's time to work,
Thank you.
yeah. Thank you very much.
See you again later.
Yes, I know.
Oh?
No, figure he'll be back.
Oh, yes, he'll be back,
Yeah,
yes.
no, sure.
If we don't see you before the holiday, have a
Yes,
nice
you
holiday.
too. All right, thank you.
You too, Lisa.
Now we have a
Yes.
vaping presentation by Marissa Vital of the program manager at Seven Hills.
Yes, and I think if we could actually sit maybe in the front row so that we can see Marissa's
I think that would be a good
PowerPoint, that
idea.
would be best.
That's the middle seats in the theater.
All right.
I like the end. He's got to get out.
Thanks for having me. So I just want to start by saying I am funded through the Department of Public Health, and I give this presentation, but a little bit extended, a little bit longer version to schools in the area, to organizations, people who work with young people, and the purpose just to educate the community about the dangers of youth vaping, and really educate the community on what this stuff looks like. So I'm glad to be here and have the opportunity to show it to you as well.
Thank you for coming.
Of course. And so I'm just going to jump right in. I know we said about 20-25 minutes, so and it's just ask me if you have questions as I'm going. It doesn't have to be super formal. So I'm going to start sort of just setting the context for where we're at in Massachusetts right now in terms of youth tobacco use. So on this graph, the red line that starts up at 35.7%, that is indicating cigarette use among high schoolers in Massachusetts. Starting in 1995, you can see it drop all the way down to about 6.5% in 2017. So lots and lots of progress was made in decreasing the youth smoking rate of combustible traditional cigarettes. You can see the purple line up there that starts at 23.7%. That's e-cigarettes, and you can see them pop on the map in 2015, and slight decrease to 2017, but likely we will see a bigger increase to 2019. We just don't have that data yet. And specifically, What we're seeing in terms of cigarette use compared to e-cigarette use is that there's a huge gap, right? Young people generally know that combustible cigarettes are harmful. They generally know the health implications. They probably even know someone in their family or a friend's family who is suffering from a combustible tobacco-related illness. That cannot be also said for e-cigarettes. Young people, particularly when this stuff first came on the market, did not know the health implications because a lot of us also didn't know. So in 2017, about 20% of high schoolers in Massachusetts were using e-cigarettes. And that was current use, so reported using in the past 30 days. Comparatively, very few were using combustible cigarettes. We also know that about 10% of middle school aged youth in Massachusetts had ever tried e-cigarettes at that point. So, and anecdotally, I can tell you I've heard stories of kids as young as 4th grade getting caught with this in the schools, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, being exposed to it on the bus, and parents have told me stories about needing to have those conversations really, really young. So really the earlier, the better to have these types of conversations. So what exactly is vaping? It's just inhaling and exhaling from an e-cigarette or vape device. This stuff is in the news a lot lately, so we're hearing e-cigarette, we're hearing vape, and sometimes people get confused and don't realize that it's all the same. These are just different names for the same products. And young people in particular are not calling their e-cigarette an e-cigarette. They're probably either calling it a vape or by the brand name. So Juul, Blue, Sorin, just some examples of the brand names. But they are all referring to the same type of product. This picture is just some very, very small sample of some of the e-cigarette products that are out there. And then I want to show you some different types of products. There are disposable and rechargeable battery products, and that's one way that we classify them. So the disposable products are small, like this. They're pre-filled with nicotine. The battery is pre-charged. They're about $8 or $9. They can have about as much nicotine as a pack of cigarettes, and they're one-time use essentially. Not one puff, but once the nicotine is gone and once the battery is dead, this would be done. You would toss it. So you can look at it more closely if you'd like. And I'll give you this one too, similar. And then there are rechargeable battery-powered devices. So that would be a little bit of a larger device, and the battery charge usually just is a USB charger. So this is one example of the little charger that would go onto a Juul device in particular, but it just charges right in the side of the computer like that. So I'll pass that one around. The other way that we categorize the devices are refillable and pod-based devices. So the one I just passed around is Juul, and Juul is a pod-based device. So the little part right on the top, and this is just another Juul, that comes out, this is the cartridge. This is where the nicotine is pre-filled when you buy it. So that's one type of device. Juul is just one example of these pod-based systems. And then there are refillable devices like this one. This one would be called a vape pen, and it just opens up and the user of the device can fill in any liquid, but we're talking about nicotine liquid, but you can put in any liquid.
And can I ask a
Yeah,
question?
definitely.
For these ones, while they're not designed to be refillable, people can
Exactly.
pack them.
Right, yes, great point. So those pods, you maybe see them sort of in this version, when you see them like in a gas station parking lot when people litter and throw them on the ground once they're empty. These pods can be refilled. It's just a quick YouTube video, honestly, that teaches you how to do it. It's not complicated at all. So Juul in particular is what is the most popular among high school aged, college aged young people. As you saw, it's very small. It looks like a flash drive. I in the past, not today, because we generally have a better understanding of what this looks like, but last year I did have people at schools tell me, yeah, this stuff was charging right in the laptops while class was going on, and staff didn't realize that it wasn't a USB drive. Similarly, I've had parents tell me, oh, I've definitely seen that in my kid's bedroom, in their backpack, because it looks so sleek and so techy, sort of unrecognizable as a tobacco product because of the way because of the way it looks and the way it was really intentionally designed. This tank system up here is just to show you another example of e-cigarettes. And that's generally not what young people are using. The tank systems and the bigger products are not easy to use in school, right? You couldn't really hide that in real life. It's like this big. You maybe see older people in their 20s or 30s or 40s using it, but high schoolers, for the most part, they're using the small products. These are some other examples to show you. And this one that says smaller than a credit card, that Thorin Device, it's leaking. This was confiscated from a school, so it's really messy. So don't take it out of the bag. But just so you can really see, you could literally fit this in your wallet. And it's super small. It looks nothing like traditional, quote unquote, tobacco. This stuff is always evolving. There's if you look over the past 12 months and you counted up all the new products that have been released, it'd be a really big number. It's always evolving. There's always something new. The commonality in the way that these products work is that they rely on a liquid. So this e-liquid or e-juice, as we call it, almost always contains nicotine, and it's either the pod form or it's the fill it in yourself form, right? So if it's I'm going to see, I adapted this PowerPoint and I took out one of my slides by accident, so sorry. So if it's the pod form and it's sold for these brand compatible specific pods, you would of course buy whatever brand you have for the device. If it's an e-liquid or a device that requires an e-liquid that you can fill in yourself, you sort of have unlimited options. These are just two examples for you to see, and I can actually open this one so you can smell it. Just don't spill it on yourself. It smells really good. It's one of over 10,000 flavors that are out there, and you just fill it right into the device.
How much does something like that cost?
So a larger bottle like that would be at least $5.
At least, that's all?
Yeah.
I know, but
Yeah.
how many times could you fill them?
Quite a few. So if you
So
look
it's
at the
cheap.
side, right, it's cheap, and I'm going to talk about that. Yeah, it's cheap. The little ones like this one, I don't know if it says how many ounces it is, but you can find these for buy two, get one free, so you're paying a total of $5 or $6 for 3 of these. And it depends where there's a sale, but to be honest with you, there's often sales in both online and in stores. Generally, all of it is quite inexpensive, except for the devices. So the devices themselves, like an e-cigarette vape pen like this and that black one, this type of device would start at around $20 and it can go up to over $100. It just depends on how nice it is, the battery capacity, a lot of different variables, but it starts cheap. $20 is not too much. The Juul is sold in starter packs. So you would get the device, you'd get the little magnetic charger piece that was on the other one, and 4 of these flavor pods for about $50. For the refills, which come in packs of 4, it's about $16. So you're getting 4 pods for $16. And what we do know about Juul is that 1 pod is the nicotine equivalent of a pack of cigarettes. So if you compare the price of the nicotine, you're getting the equivalent of 4 packs of cigarettes for not much more than the price of a pack of cigarettes. Yeah.
This is designed to look like Sour Patch Kids.
And it smells just like it, right? Yeah, this is the box.
So it would
is
appeal to
really ratty.
kids.
Right. This flavor is cotton candy, and I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't open the bottle. The bottle's old, but you can smell it right through the bag. Yeah. And so the way that these, it smells kind of good, right?
So let me
Yeah,
ask you this.
yeah.
You put the cartridge in,
Yeah.
the pod in. And you just keep, I've never been a smoker, okay?
Yep.
You just keep sucking on this thing all day, or do you do it for 5 minutes?
Right.
Because a cigarette at least
question.
would burn out, and you
Yeah.
have termination of the event.
Right, that's a great question. So if the pod is full, you theoretically could sit there and just keep puffing and keep inhaling until it's empty. You'd need to exhale the vapor. And I've had high schoolers tell me that they can do that within a 30-minute time period, go through the whole thing. Generally, what we're hearing from teenagers is that they will typically use a pod per day, or every 2 days, or every 3 days. So they're not generally sitting down and using it all at once. They're using it throughout the day. And you can't visually see, like with a cigarette, you visually see how much you've consumed. With the pods, you don't know it's empty until you inhale and there's nothing left. You could take it out and you could check. But if you're using it, in between during every passing period in school, and you go to the bathroom, and then you get home and you're using it while you're doing your homework or playing video games or whatever, it maybe isn't until 8:30 at night that you go to take the puff from it and you realize there's not much left. Teenagers generally, I certainly haven't heard of any teenagers who are able to physically smoke an entire pack of cigarettes in 30 minutes or an hour. But there are challenges and like internet challenges and Instagram, all sorts of internet stuff to hotbox your car with this to get the nicotine head rush, to see how much you can consume as fast as possible. And there's not the same harshness of cigarette smoke like there is, so it makes it a lot easier to get a whole lot of nicotine this way. And the inhaled vapor that you're getting from an e-cigarette, it's not actually vapor, it's an aerosol. So we call it a vapor, we call the big cloud that comes out a vapor, but it's actually aerosol. Because this stuff is oil-based, it's the flavored liquid nicotine, and it's glycerin, and it's propylene glycol, and it's an oil. It's heated and it's aerosolized, not vaporized. So this picture actually, this is a perfect segue into it, is sort of showing you a really simplified way that these devices work, sort of regardless of what they actually look like. These are the general components: the battery, the atomizer, and the heating coils, the cartridge, which is where that nicotine would be stored, and then the mouthpiece. And so the liquid is aerosolized, and the aerosol contains, like I said, oil. There's glycerin, there's propylene glycol. When propylene glycol is heated, it can produce formaldehyde. There's diacetyl, which is a flavoring linked with popcorn lung, which is permanent scarring of the lung tissue. There's heavy metals from the batteries and the heating coils, actually, in all of these devices, which can be inhaled as part of that aerosol. There are ultrafine particles, and there is almost always nicotine. And this aerosol, inhaled by the user, has all of this stuff and more. It's super relevant now, especially that we're hearing about all of these lung illnesses, to really stress that we don't know the full extent of what is in this, but what we know is inhaled, and then it's exhaled. So the secondhand aerosol, just like with secondhand smoke, is also potentially harmful. So this is a huge issue in the schools, right? When you have young people who are vaping in the bathrooms or in the hallways or in the classrooms, and then you have young people who are not vaping, who are still inhaling this exhaled secondhand aerosol. Really important to note is that the nicotine that I said is almost always in this aerosol. It's not regulated. The FDA doesn't regulate the manufacture of these e-liquids, so both the chemicals and all the additives in here isn't regulated, but neither is the nicotine content. And lots of these have very high nicotine contents. Juul, we know is really high nicotine content. This product that I passed around to you isn't labeled. It doesn't say how much nicotine is in it. There are lots of examples of products that are labeled as having one amount of nicotine, and then when tested, if they are tested, it doesn't match up. And nicotine is a huge problem for teenagers in particular. Their brains are still developing until about age 25, and nicotine actually can prime the developing brain for future addiction to other substances. Young people who use e-cigarettes are 4 times more likely to go on to use combustible cigarettes. And the earlier someone starts using nicotine, and for young people right now that's through e-cigarettes, but the earlier that addiction starts and the earlier that exposure to nicotine happens, the more likely their addiction will last longer. It's harder to quit. Nicotine is, when the young brain is exposed to nicotine, it actually can change the parts of the brain that control attention and learning. And nicotine use before full brain development can lead to mood disorders like anxiety and depression, and lowering of impulse control as well. And again, we can't be sure what is in these products and exactly how much nicotine they contain. This picture, it's very small, I know, but it says right up on the top, this product does not contain nicotine. And then the last ingredient listed is nicotine. So I like to show this example, and it's really clear, even just on, it's right on the bottle, showing you the inconsistency. And I always like to say, you know, young people, for the most part, they understand that if they have, say, an allergy to almonds, if they read a food label and it doesn't say this product contains tree nuts, they know, you know, that label is true. And it's either safe or not safe for them to consume. The same cannot be said for e-cigarette products, and so many young people went into using e-cigarettes thinking that it was flavored water or just the vapor, no nicotine. And that is both because there's inconsistency in how it's marketed and how it's labeled, and also because that's what they've heard from their friends or from advertising or even from their parents. So there's a lot of misperceptions around this. So these are some frequently asked questions. Are e-cigarettes safe? No. The CDC has said that e-cigarettes are not safe for youth, young adults, pregnant women, or adults who do not currently use tobacco products. Again, we know that secondhand vape is also unsafe, and we need more long-term research. Can e-cigarettes be used to vape other substances? Yes. It's either extremely easy because that's what the device is intended for, or it's just a quick YouTube video. How do you know if young people are vaping? It's really tricky. These are by no means the catch-all ways to tell. But I always like to mention any sort of device that's sort of techy or kind of looks like it might be a school supply, but you don't know exactly what it is, or like the little credit card shaped one kind of looks like a portable battery pack for a phone or something. The unfamiliar products can be a big giveaway. And then the unexplained sweet scent. If you smell someone or you smell cotton candy and you don't see someone eating cotton candy, someone is most likely vaping a cotton candy flavor, but this gets super tricky because there are over 10,000 flavors. Lots of them are the same types of smells as a hand lotion or body spray or actual candy or gum. So the tobacco and vaping industries have really, they have quite a long history of intentionally targeting specific populations, youth being one of those particular target markets for them, right? And they make the products, historically, they've made tobacco cheap and sweet and easy to get in order to get youth interested in and ultimately addicted to tobacco. So this picture is actually some of the precursors to vaping. So in 2009, the FDA banned flavored cigarettes with the exemption of mint menthol and wintergreen. And the evolution in this sweet targeting tactic was that the tobacco industry started really pushing these flavored little mini cigars. And in this picture, I think there's 15 tobacco products, and they blend right in with the candy and the chapstick and the gum. And then what came next in this sweet tactic was the vaping liquids and the vaping products. Who do flavors appeal to? They appeal to young people, and the industry knows this, of course, and that's why they use this tactic. We even see among adult tobacco users, younger age groups use flavored products more than older age groups. Specifically in terms of vaping, these e-liquids and juices, the flavorings that they contain make the product seem harmless. We saw this, this just happened with vaping. The misperception that it's just flavoring and just juice, it's just watermelon vapor. That's a huge misperception, and it's largely because of these flavors. I mentioned mint, menthol, and wintergreen were exempt from the ban on flavored cigarettes, and mint and menthol cigarettes are they're easier to smoke. Menthol it's less harsh on the throat. It's actually more addictive, and it's harder to quit. And it's an appealing tobacco product to young people. Among vaping products, mint is actually the second most popular vape flavor. So just really wanting to think about flavors as including all flavors without that language from 2009 that did exempt the mint flavors. The next tactic of cheap, and I hope I left the picture that I want to show you in here. Okay, I did. The industry makes this stuff really cheap, right? Whether it's the actual price or whether it's because there's always a sale, vaping products and other tobacco products can be very affordable. This picture is showing you the blue product over there. That's $1.06 for a starter kit, which is a device, a charger, and one flavor pod, and it's basically a Juul knockoff for $1.06. That sale was online and in stores for a while last year, like many weeks this was running. Right before the temporary flavor ban went into effect in September, the Cumberland Farms near my house, and I'm sure if I went to other gas stations too, but it just happens to be the one that I go to, they had a sign up for Juul starter kits for $16, and they're normally $50, so it's a huge discount. This stuff can be very affordable, and we know that youth are price sensitive. For every 10% increase in price, we see a 7% decrease in the youth smoking rate. Especially when we're talking about the little cigars like that, which those can be sold, unless there's a regulation prohibiting it, those can be sold for like 49 cents. And you can find 49 cents walking in a parking lot. It's very doable for young people to come up with small amounts of money like that. So the good news and the bad news, we know what strategies work. We know that local regulations are really important in preventing youth access to and reducing youth use of tobacco products. And the bad news is that the tobacco companies have tons of money, and they know what they're doing, and they are successfully targeting young people. They're continuing to do that. The newest version of this is e-cigarettes. This graph is showing you e-cigarette use among youth rising as advertising dollars go up, unsurprisingly. And then I just wanted to share some resources for you. The Massachusetts Department of Public Health has an information campaign designed for adults. It's called The New Look of Nicotine Addiction, and the website is getoutrage.org. There's a ton of resources on that site. Everything that I've talked about and a lot more is up on that site. There's a toolkit for schools to use. There's free curriculum that the schools are using here in Fall River. And the Surgeon General and the CDC are also great resources. And then I also wanted to mention there are new resources available to help youth quit. And I have a handout on it actually, but they're free, confidential, text, phone, and online-based counseling programs. Because what we are seeing now is that young people are really struggling. Young people who have been using e-cigarettes for a year or 2 years, or 2 months, they need help quitting. And so what I'm hearing from a lot of schools now is that when a young person is caught vaping, they're including helping young people quit in whatever other sort of repercussions there are. So I can leave, I have quite a few. I don't know if you want extras of the handouts, but I can leave them with you. And then that's all I have. I know it's like a lot really condensed into a small amount of time, but I wanted to make sure that there's time for questions.
Great, thank you, Marcia.
You're welcome.
It's pretty sad that these tobacco companies have zero sense of responsibility or ethics.
Yeah, it's very blatant. The quotes from the industry are just, they're very disturbing. They consider teenagers to be their target customer or replacement customers is what they call them. Yeah.
And would you be able to share a little bit about the state bill that's potentially being voted on today?
Sure. So I can't share much, so the Senate is voting on a proposed bill to ban all flavored tobacco in Massachusetts. And they will be voting at some point today. It passed the House last week. And
And that
Well,
includes
right,
menthol.
exactly.
And it would be like traditional.
Right, all flavors. So all the flavored stuff I showed you and menthol cigarettes,
Even though that's not tobacco per se.
So it's considered tobacco products. Yeah, it's a nicotine product, so it's considered a tobacco product. Yeah. Yep. And in sort of the past couple of months, I think maybe the first one was in January, so it's been almost a year. Towns in Massachusetts have been starting to include mint, menthol, and wintergreen in their flavored tobacco restrictions on the local level. So I think there are 14 or 15, there's a pretty good handful now of communities that have restricted the sale of all flavored products, including mint, menthol, and wintergreen, to adult-only stores. And then there are, I want to say, around 160 communities that have done the same thing, but they've exempted mint, menthol, and wintergreen. But sort of the new direction that local municipalities are going in is to include all flavors in their definition of flavors, if that makes sense.
And are any of these pods, are any of them like unflavored, that would become a new market?
Yeah, so there are tobacco flavored pods. So the state bill, the flavored tobacco products, that would cover everything other than unflavored or tobacco flavored. So yeah, you could theoretically get an unflavored, totally plain liquid.
So
Yeah.
that's not as appealing to
Exactly,
middle
right,
schoolers.
right. So young people, they generally do not use unflavored products at all. They use flavors. Flavors are the number one reason they start using the products. Over 90% of young people, or over 90% of people who use tobacco products start before they're 18, and the flavors are what's most appealing to those under age 18.
What's the number one flavor? I know you mentioned
The fruity flavors. I don't know if there's one single, but there's a lot of like fruity, like mango and
grape, so that's great.
grape. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have any questions for me?
No.
I just had a question that just escaped me. And then in terms of like, so they can get away with all this because branding wise, there's enough modification
Yeah. It's
that even though this looks exactly like the Sour Patch Kid label, that they just are able to stand by it.
yeah. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure, because to me that looks just like it.
Right.
But
yeah.
yeah. I mean it's there. And I've seen pictures of others that like look just like certain juice box brands and Ready Whip and Mott's applesauce and.
Well, you also have to wonder, because a lot of companies are in conglomerates. So are they in the conglomerate that also owns Sour Patch Kids?
That's an interesting question. Yeah.
And so what are other types of like regulations that other communities, I guess, if the state moves to doing this, that other communities are doing or could do to, kind of prevent?
Yeah. So the flavor restriction is one, and that's just moving all flavored products to adult-only retail stores. But then there are regulations around retail density that a lot of other towns do. So they place a cap on the number of tobacco retail permits. And then some communities also put what's called a dual cap. So they'll cap the total number of permits, but then they will also cap the total number of adult-only retail tobacco permits. And then, and I'm not sure, I'd have to check, but you probably know, the regulations about how close together retailers can be. Do you have that? So that's another thing that communities do. They can place restriction on how close to another retailer a new retailer could open, regulations on how close to schools tobacco permits can be. And really what we recommend is sort of a comprehensive approach, the flavor restriction and the density, the stuff that gets at the density issue. And I'm sure Seth can give you more details and info about that, because that would be more so his expertise. But and then we have like Cheryl and DJ who can help speak to that too, more specifically, if that is something that you're thinking about doing.
And I just was thinking about how, since the commissioner of the State Department of Public Health had in September required, healthcare providers and hospitals to report cases of evaling the lung concerns. And a lot of those cases, it seems like, are not only just with youth, but also like a 35 to 50-year-olds. And even I believe a few weeks ago there was a death in an individual within that age range. So it's really, maybe could you share a little bit about people who are like dual using with e-cigarettes as well as combustible?
So before this temporary ban went into effect in Massachusetts, you, I'm sure, heard or saw the Juul, specifically the Juul commercials about this is a tool to help adult tobacco users quit their combustible cigarettes. And that's not really a new message for pretty much since the stuff came on the market. They were marketing it as a safer alternative to combustible tobacco. And so lots of people were trying to quit cigarettes by using this, and because this isn't regulated, they were either maybe switching 100% to the vaping products but still using more nicotine at the end of the day, or using both combustible cigarettes and e-cigarettes and getting a whole lot more nicotine that way, increasing their risk of cardiac problems with the dual use specifically. None of the e-cigarettes are FDA-approved cessation tools. And when this stuff first came on the market, actually it was rejected. Like, the industry said, no, we don't want you to test and regulate this as a cessation tool. So despite all of the marketing around that, they declined to have it regulated that way. But yeah, I mean, I've heard lots of stories of people of adults who use tobacco who either switched fully to e-cigarettes or who ended up using both. And I've had, I mean, this is completely anecdotal, but I've had people tell me that they felt a lot more dependent on the e-cigarettes, like feeling like they're getting so much more nicotine that way. And it really kind of goes back to exactly the issue that we have with how this affects youth, is that we don't have the long-term information on how does it affect someone's lungs who maybe smoked a combustible cigarette for 15 years and then moved to e-cigarettes. We don't know. There's so many variables that we just don't have that long-term info on yet. Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like there's any type of regulations that will come down in terms of even the pause beyond like maybe restricting them or doing statewide bans, things like that, but the FDA isn't moving towards any type of regulation in terms of the level of nicotine in any of these.
Yeah, that I'm not sure, even if they were, how quickly it would move. A lot of times when I talk at schools, if it's a group of parents, that usually at least someone will say, like, what is the federal government doing about this? So I really like to stress that the fastest usually way to do something is local and then state and then federal. Unfortunately, we can't hold our breaths and wait for the FDA to take swift action. Unfortunately, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I know the president had some strong feelings about banning this, and now he's since said never mind, he's not interested in doing it anymore, so.
So the state is supposed to be voting tonight, like Royce had said, so I'll be able to update you by tomorrow morning, hopefully, whether or not they've done that, or there were like a number of things, like the fines were gonna be increased from, 100, 200, 300 to 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, so there's a number of kind of things that the House had passed, the bill the House had passed, that may or may not be adapted in any capacity, so once I have more information, we'll be able to share that with you all.
Anything would be better than nothing, because $100 fine is not going to deter these vendors. They're making more than that, so yeah, that's $100.
Right. So we're hopeful, and then the governor would then have to, sign that. So it's, even if it passes, we'll have to kind of wait and see. But, we'll get that information, and then if, after we take a look at that and you want to think about anything locally, then we can take it from there. But really, I just wanted to kind of have Marissa come to show you what types of products were out there, what they look like, and also, how easy it is to conceal. Like, I think one of your presentations I went to, that people were saying there's like backpacks that are being made of.
Yeah. So, one thing, kids will just cut a little slit in the strap of the backpack and just stick it right in, so they can just go like that. But there are also brands specifically that have the specific pocket in the strap of the backpack or on the t-shirt, where the regular normal size pocket would be, it's jewel sized. There's sweatshirts where the strings of the hoodie are wide enough specifically so you can fit your e-cigarette in it. I've seen bracelets, vaping bracelets. I've seen, and I wish I could remember the name of it, but it was an inhaler. It was a vape, but it was an inhaler. The marketing on the website was like, so you can self-medicate without judgment. It was extremely disturbing, and it looked just like an asthma inhaler. So there's a lot going on making this very concealable. Yeah.
Yeah, I think education is the key, because when this first came out, people thought it was much safer than cigarette smoking, and by the time they realize it's not, they're already addicted.
Yeah. I know the high school is using, I believe, the Catch My Breath curriculum, which is, there's a middle school version and a high school version, but it's a really great curriculum that they've just put into the health classes, and it's all about e-cigarettes, the dangers, and that's great. And I can't remember her name. Is it Michelle Sharp?
Yes.
I believe she's working on some collaborative project, also a curriculum that will, I think, be available to the state. I believe she's working on that with some others. So the education is definitely is happening here for sure.
Interesting to see those stats in a few years, see if they come back.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well,
Thank you.
so much,
Thank you very
Marissa.
Thanks for having me.
It was very interesting. Sad, but interesting.
I know, it's disturbing but interesting, right?
Yes. Well, because the more we know, we can speak to kids from an educated viewpoint.
Yeah, and that's the important part is, being able to, thank you, have the facts to share with young people.
Dispelling the myths.
To which I said, don't ever let me catch you. I'm an oncology nurse. Don't even think you
On the pains of death?
Pretty much, I didn't want to say that.
Thank
but we're on TV, so.
You're speaking as a grandparent now.
Right.
Melissa, thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next item on the agenda is the authorization of a health agent to act on board's behalf regarding Section 143M of Chapter 114, the cremation of an unclaimed body. Now, I will admit I read that several times, I'm still not sure about it, but now,
Okay.
to get a little bit
I
of
read the
detail
thing
before
in
we
the
do
back.
this.
Sure. So there is a state law that boards of health are required to sign off on an unclaimed body. So a funeral home reached out to me that they have an unclaimed body, that the individual doesn't have any family members, and or in some cases, a family members may not want to claim the body. And in that situation, the Board of Health is the signatory on the cremation. So, the funeral director comes to me with paperwork, and then 30 days after that, if approved, then I would sign off on behalf of the board as the agent of the board to then allow the funeral home to cremate the unclaimed body. It's, part of it is ensuring that they've made attempts to find a family member or reach out to family members, and I would certainly make sure that the funeral director or funeral home has done their due diligence in making sure that there is in fact no family members that would.
What happens to the remains?
The funeral home is able to take it, and I don't quite know what they do after that, whether they have a location that they bury the remains, the cremated remains, or whatever they do. I know they're very respectful, and
Oh,
they
yeah.
make sure that they, have some type of a orderly and professional and courteous, way to transition there. But what is expected and kind of required of us is that we sign off so that the remains are able to be cremated, and that
That's what I kind of thought must be happening. Someone, I thought it was very sad.
That's what I thought.
That was the first thing that crossed my mind. But, all right, I would be agreeable with this.
I would too,
Okay.
but I think it's really, really sad.
Sad,
that
sad was the
somebody
word that
have
came to my
nobody.
mind when I read
Nobody.
it through.
I know, I think, it doesn't happen often, but it does seem to happen.
Well, when you consider the homeless population, you have to wonder if they have anybody involved.
Right, and it can be expensive for families, so I think that may be another issue for some folks where they don't.
They can't claim them because they can't afford to do anything with them.
And I don't know, that is always the case, but it can certainly occur. But in this particular scenario where I've been outreach to, there's no family that can be found or contacted.
Okay. You make the motion?
I make a motion to allow Tess to act in behalf of the Board of Health for patients, people that need to have a family.
I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Is there any new business to come before the board of such a nature that it couldn't make the agenda?
No new business.
Okay. For the record, we will note that there is no one here other than the board members, the secretary of board, and our videographer. So there's no citizens input today. How are we looking for dates for the next meeting? We'll have to consult with Dr. Souza for December. Is there anything potential for December? 'Cause
Thus far, we have not been informed of anything from the sanitation or food or minimum housing inspectors that would require a meeting. Sometimes it does come.
Okay. Shall we set a date?
Sure.
And if we don't need it, we'll just, we'll get a couple of dates for January and for December?
Sure.
Of course,
I'm trying to decide if we usually meet in December.
well, we always set the date, and I think 9 out of the last 10 years that the meeting's been canceled. I know Christmas is on a Wednesday, so that Wednesday is out. The Wednesday before might be a little too soon. The Wednesday after is New Year's, so.
I am out of town from the 11th to the 14th, and from the 27th of December till the 10th of January.
So what's the Wednesday before?
The 4th.
No, the 18th, you mean?
Well, you're out on the 18th, right?
No,
Oh, you're back.
I'm out the 11th to the 14th.
Oh, the 14th.
So
And then I'm out the 27th to the 10th of January.
so you want to tentatively schedule something for the 18th if we need it?
Sure. I may have, could we potentially do it at 1:30 that day?
That's not a problem, as long as
Okay.
if there's construction around City Hall, I would appreciate a call.
Okay, I'll be sure to make a note of that. So December 18th at 1, we have our team holiday lunch that day at 12:30. That's great, and I will reach out to Dr. Souza and
Yes,
see
he's
what his
available.
schedule
Is
allows.
is there anything coming on the search for new member?
I'm in the process of searching. I've reached out and spoken with Mayor-elect as well,
Mhm.
so he's also on a search.
Okay.
I have spoken with one individual, Dr. John Conlon from St. Edith's, he's the chief medical officer there. However, he's not a resident of Fall River. So if we move forward with Dr. Conlon, I will have to go to the city council, which I may be doing on December 3rd. I'll notify you all of that to request for an exemption for the residency component of the board, because that's per the charter.
Mhm.
You're
Yes.
supposed to be a resident, so we'll have to ask for an exemption. If we're not able to find
Okay, that's fine.
Nobody in Fall River that's a doctor wants to do it. They don't live here.
Not that I've found.
Well,
On the outskirts.
there aren't many physicians who live in town.
That's what I mean, they live in the
Yeah.
outskirts.
Mhm.
Dartmouth, Westport, Somerset.
So I'm continuing
Oh,
our search
oh,
and
that's no
have
problem.
folks, lots of people putting the word out for us, but so far I haven't come up with a
Do we want to look at something for January
Yeah,
tentatively?
yeah,
Oh,
January.
what do you got for January? I'm not going anywhere, so I just got one,
Just the 8th I cannot do, because
Okay.
I won't be back till
well,
the
let's
10th.
tend toward the end of the month,
Sure.
22nd,
22nd, or what's the following?
15, 22, 29.
Yeah.
Want to go with 29?
Sure, sure.
And maybe we could just put one other December date on the chance that Dr. Souza has a conflict on the 18th.
Okay.
Just in case. That way I could give them two options. So maybe the 11th, December 11th, oh, you're out then.
Who's out?
You,
Oh, yeah, I am.
We can pick another day of the week.
Right, maybe we could do,
I mean, if you can do Monday or Tuesday of that week, or Monday or Tuesday of the following week. I leave the 11th.
okay. I could do any of those days. Do you have any?
I have no conflicts, no travels, nothing in
I'm going
December.
to support my grandson, who made the All-Star team. He's going to Florida for national championship.
Oh, congratulations, that's great.
Let's maybe try the 10th, Tuesday the 10th at 1, that way it's a different week in case Dr.
Mhm.
Souza has any issues, but
Okay,
December 18th.
very good.
Okay, and as soon as I hear back from him, I'll report to
Oh.
both of you. And then I'll keep you informed as to whether or not we'll need the December.
Okay. Motion to adjourn,
I make a motion to adjourn.
seconded, all in favor say aye, opposed, so voted.
Didn't even give me a chance.